The series begins with a man walking in the rain, looking not very well. He comes to a halt and slashes his wrist with a knife. That man is the crown prince. Well, was. He is the third prince who has now died, and now there is just one prince who's still alive in the palace. There seems to be a collective agreement among the people in the palace that these deaths are the works of an evil spirit. This theory is strengthened by the fact that 30 years ago, the same thing happened where the princes started dying one after the other under mysterious circumstances. The king doesn't believe in these rumors, but his mind is changed when a spirit shows up in his dreams to introduce themselves, let's say. The spirit does a little meet and greet, a little choking, a little "I'll eradicate your bloodline," and voila, he is convinced. At the same time, the only living prince falls gravely ill, so Daddy Dearest definitely has to do something now. He eventually finds his way to our male lead, Guchon, who is currently living in a temple. After getting a brief gist of the happenings and also observing the aura of the king, Guchon is like, "Nope, I want no part of this shit," and leaves. As we all know, rich and powerful people love respecting other people's boundaries and not abusing their powers, so the king does nothing and lets him go. Just kidding. He has him kidnapped and brought into the palace, where he threatens to kill him if he doesn't undo whatever bad juju is manifesting. Absolute genius, big brain move by the king here. Wow! Threatening the one person in whose hands his son's life lays. Stop! He assigns a lady to assist Guchon, a female lead, Sengang, who is actually his daughter. At some point in the past, she and her mother were thrown out of the palace, but the king brings her back specifically because he needs someone to spy on Guchon's doings for him. From the interactions between the two, you can tell that there isn't a lot of tender love and care in this relationship. Like, these two are not going on any daddy-daughter dates anytime soon. She meets Guchon, and from the get-go, the two have this sort of bickering vibe. She doesn't like that he seems to just lay around, not doing anything, and he wants to do just that. Lazing around, that is. The little prince's condition suddenly worsens, seemingly due to dark forces, and we finally get to see Guchon in action. He gets a rope, ties one end to a tree beside a pond, and the other end he ties around his neck. Then he walks into the pond and submerges himself in the water. He's doing this because he needs to die, just temporarily, in order to enter the spirit world and to see what's going on. Upon his arrival at the other side, he goes to the little prince's room, and lo and behold, we see the spirit behind all the ruckus, actively harming the little prince. He does battle with it and manages to subdue it for a while. The episode ends with Guchon questioning the spirit about its motives and intentions.
Who are you?
The drama is pretty. The scenes are pretty. It also has a lot of pretty people, so I guess that's something. The actors playing the king, Cho Sung-woo, and the actress playing the Queen Dowager, Chang Young-nam, are about the only ones who have such presence. So even when the writing and the dialogue is giving nothing, they're at least interesting to look at as they perform. You know when you watch something good and you're trying to give a summary to someone else. And when you're done, you feel like you haven't done the story justice because there are so many nuances and details and intricacies that you just can't present in a broad stroke summary, but is absolutely essential to the story. And so you resign and say to the person, you just have to see it yourself. Well, this drama is nothing like that. There is so little going on narratively. They seem more concerned with the so-called plot twists and with presenting how vast and cool their world is without building any lore for the world. There's a lot of, and this exists, and that exists, and this can happen, and ooh, isn't that so cool? And very little of this exists, so that happens like this, and therefore results in this. There's not a lot of and therefores in the story. Things just happen. I guess in the mind of the makers, if no rules apply to anything, then anything goes. No rules can be broken because they don't exist. And they also won't have to take even a second to think about how anything works. They could just come up with the most crazy, nonsensical rubbish with no precedence and no further implications that just exists at that very convenient time. And there are no rules that say, okay, that doesn't work in this universe. Because they made no rules. I'm not saying things have to be rigid. Rules can be bent. You can have fluidity even within an established system. Kind of like 1 + 1 doesn't have to always be 2, but it sure as hell shouldn't equal, I don't know, alligator. I'm just going to focus on the 2 leads because they're the face of the show. I don't know what happened here because I've seen these 2 in other series where they were good, so it's just very baffling. To summarize the performances, I would just say the acting was on paid maternity leave for the duration that they shot this drama. From what I saw, there was no intensity. No, not even intensity. That doesn't quite encapsulate the blandness. There was no variation, no emotional highs and lows. Just this plain, zero effort, uninteresting nothing. So, combine the non-existent plot, the bland characters, and the nothing acting together, and just imagine me as a viewer watching scenes, especially towards the end, where by the words the characters are speaking and by the music playing in the background, I can tell the makers want me to have some sort of emotional response, but because the story has no emotional core, I just didn't care, and I was just watching like,
am I in hell?
The way I was so detached watching this, I would have bought a bomb with my very little money, handed it over to the villain just so he could quickly get rid of everyone, and we would have a shorter run time and my suffering would end.
I say let it die!
I'll call this section, wow, isn't that so convenient? First, the main villain's powers and ability to affect the physical world increasing and decreasing as the plot calls for. How very convenient. Then there's the female lead's ability to hear spirits that appears and disappears when the plot needs. Also very convenient. There's also this creature which I'll call the also conveniently placed here to solve our problems Labubu merchandise thing. There's nothing about this creature that is concrete. It's powerful when the plot needs it to be, and helpless and pitiful when the plot needs it to be. So, convenient. There's also the final, very, very convenient Grandmaster Evil Spirit, and the powerful swords he gives to Guchan, which...
The Lord is testing me.
Why? Why? There's supposed to be a final section where I pick my favorite or least favorite scenes and dissect them, but that requires me to put more thought into analyzing this than the people behind the scenes did. And I don't want to. I refuse to. So, bye.